I'm invited to talk about this topic of a free and fair elections. Yeah, and let's go into what do we mean by free and fair elections. Yeah, so if we go by Robert Dahl, a political scientist, he says that free and fair election is defined as an election in which coercion is comparatively uncommon. That means there is no coercion, yeah, used in the electoral processes. Yeah. So what do you mean by fair elections? Yeah. So a fair elections involve political freedoms and fair processes. Yeah, leading up to the vote, a fair count of eligible voters who cast a vote, and acceptance of election results by all parties. Okay, so as you can see that the election is an important process to elect a new government, yeah, and give the mandate to the government to rule for 5 years. In the case of Malaysia, every 5 years, we have this general election to elect a new government. Yeah, so because of this, the purpose of this election, so it is really important, the integrity of the electoral processes, and to make sure that the processes and the results are free and fair. Yeah. So in order for the government established or elected after this have the legitimacy to rule the country, to govern the country for 5 years. Yeah. So that's the purpose of election and the importance to ensure free and fair processes, yeah, in the electoral processes. Now, so let's go into more details. What do we mean by free? Yeah? So when we talk about free, just now I mentioned that there is no coercion. So if we go concretely, that means you are free to register as a voter. So no one can stop you to register as a voter. You are free to vote. No one should be able to stop you to go to the polling station to vote. You are free to form political parties if you want, yeah, or you are free to join any political parties. You are free to stand as a candidate. So no one should stop you if you want to be a candidate, yeah. And you are free to campaign as well, yeah. If you are a candidate, you want to send out your messages to the voters, you are free to do so. And of course, to run election, you need money. So you should be able to freely raise funds for your election campaign. Yeah. So that is free. Yeah. And what do we mean by fair? Yeah? So when we say fair elections, that means there is a level playing field for all the political parties and candidates. So they are all treated equally. So whether it is a campaign period, everybody have the same campaign period, 14 days, everyone have 14 days. Yeah. And then election spending should be the same. Yeah. So if for parliament, you have 200,000 that you can spend. So no matter which party you are coming from, you should only spend 200,000. So every candidate should spend 200,000, not more than 200,000. Yeah? And access to media, also there should be equal access to media. Yeah. So television, radio, you know, whether if party A get 15 minutes of advertising, so party B should be able to get 15 minutes of advertising as well. Yeah. And also the law enforcement. The law enforcement should be equally enforced to whoever that committed offenses. Yeah, and there should not be a double standards. Okay, so that's what we term by fair. Yeah, so these two elements are very important. So we'll go into more details later, and then you can see how these two elements play out, yeah, in the processes. Now, let's look at our past general election results in Malaysia. So if you look at 2003, the bottom line, Barisan Nasional, they received popular votes, a total votes of 4.4 million. That is about 63%, of the popular votes of total voters. But if you look at the seats they have, they win the seats in parliament is 198. That is 90.41%. So although their votes, they receive 63% only, but in terms of parliament seats, they get 90%, almost 90%. So for the opposition, although they get 34% of the seats, but when it translates into parliament seats, they only get 9.13% of the parliament seats. So that is about, they only win about 20 seats. That's the lowest for the opposition, in the history. So then we look at the 2008, so Barisan Nasional get about 4 million. That is about 51% of the total votes. But translate to parliament seats, they get 63% of the parliament seats. It's 140 seats. That is 63%. And for the opposition, they get 47% of the votes. But when translate to parliament seats, they only get 36%. So then things started to change, since 2008. Then 2013, Barisan Nasional got 5.2 million votes. That is 47%. But the opposition get more. They get more votes for 5.6 million. That is 50.87% of the total votes. That means opposition at that time, they actually receive more votes than Barisan Nasional. But because of the seats, Barisan Nasional actually get 133. So they became the government. The opposition couldn't form the government because even though they have more than 50% of the popular votes, but in terms of seats, they only get 89 seats. That is only 40% of the parliament seats. So then things change again in 2018. Barisan Nasional get about 4 million votes, but this time the percentage of the votes down to 33.7%, and the seats they only get 79. That is about 35%. 35%, still more than the percentage of the votes. For the opposition, they get 5.5 million. That is 45% of the popular votes. Seats they get 113, so that is 50.9. But because of the seats, so you can see that the percentage of the seats of opposition actually is higher than the votes that they receive. So they get 45% of the votes, but parliament seats they get 50%. So they have 113 out of 222 seats. So opposition became government, in 2008. So from this chart, you can see that our electoral system, there is some problems in our electoral system. There is some issues, because even though you get the majority votes, but you still couldn't become the government, because of the problems in our electoral system, which we are going to explain later. So this is the electoral cycles. So if you look at the whole electoral cycles from legal framework to planning, implementation, training and education, voter registration, electoral campaign, voting operations, election day, verification of results, and post-elections. So this is a cycle every 5 years. But if you can see that the there is 3 stages, yeah, of the electoral processes. So this is the electoral processes. So roughly it can be divided into 3 stages. One is pre-election, one is election, and one is post-election. Yeah. So these 3 stages, how it is being designed and how it is being implemented will determine whether the election will be free and fair. Okay, so pre-elections, it involves so many issues, yeah, from a legal framework, electoral system design, to electoral management body, voter registration, party registration, voter education, training, election boundaries, yeah. So this is a preparation for the elections, yeah. So then election, of course, is, I think we are all familiar with these processes. There is nomination, there is campaign, there is polling, vote counting, and then the announcement of the results, right? And then the post-election is, then the candidates will be reporting their election spending, and then if there is dispute on the election results, they can file election petitions, yeah. So basically, that's the whole process. But most of the people just focus on election, yeah, because that is the visible activities. Everybody can see, the newspapers will be reporting on the activities of election campaigns, the candidates. But actually, the more important process is pre-election, yeah, because this will determine the process of election and post-election, yeah. So, but most of the time, people don't pay attention to pre-election, which is actually the most important part of the whole electoral process in determining whether the election is going to be free or fair, yeah. Now, there are so many issues on electoral processes. I will not be able to tell you all the problems in 40 minutes. So for this lecture, I'm going to just focus on 7 main issues, especially during the pre-electoral processes. Okay, so number 1 is voter registration. So voter registration, what are the problems? There are complaints of phantom voters. As of now, voters also need to register in order to be able to vote. So it's not automatically, yeah. And then 18 to 21 cannot vote, yeah. And then absentee voters. So if you are, let's say if you are staying in Sarawak, if you are from Sarawak, but you are staying in KL, and you don't have money to buy a ticket to come back to vote, so then you lose your votes, yeah. And electoral rolls, our electoral rolls also have a lot of problems. There is a lot of voters doesn't have address in the rolls, so you are not sure whether there is such a person living in that area, yeah. Especially in the rural areas where, you know, maybe there is no road name, there is no house number, etc. Yeah. So in order to address these problems, so we are suggesting how to reform, you know, this issue. So one is indelible ink. This has been advocated by BERSIH since we formed in 2006. And eventually this was implemented in 2013, yeah, 2013 general elections. Although 2008 we pushed, but the election commission refused to implement this. But now this is implemented in 2013 and the last general elections. So this is to address the problems of phantom voters. And then now, of course, we hear about the automatic voter registration and the low Undi 18. Yeah? So automatic registration, that means you don't need to go to post office or election commission to register anymore. Automatically, if you are a citizen, automatically you can vote. Your name will be in the electoral roll. So it it lessen the burdens on the voters and also the bureaucracy. Yeah? And of course, the lowering of the voting age to 18, that will enfranchise much more bigger population, yeah, able to vote and able to decide the future of the country. So for absentee voters, we are suggesting postal voting or advanced voting so that people can actually make early arrangement or even use postal voting, yeah, so that they can able to exercise their right, yeah, they are entitled to their vote. And the electoral rolls, the problems, of course, needs to be cleaned up, the electoral roll. And so we are suggesting, to use a system in the UK where they have a dual-coded national address registration system with a unique address identifier. So you are able to identify the buildings, the address, the location, and how many people actually living in that house, and who are the people and all that. Yeah. So this will, address some of the problems of phantom voters and people who have passed away and are still in the role and etc. Yeah. Now, the second issue is political party registration. So in order to contest in an election, you need to, you can contest as an independent, but independent candidates, you don't have the machinery, you are just alone, and you might not get the support from the voters. But political party have the machinery, so they have a national organization all over the country and all that. So it would be easier, yeah. And of course, this is also one of the basic rights to freedom of association. So you join a political party or you want to establish a political party, yeah, to contest in election. But the problem in Malaysia is that the registration of party is controlled by the Registrar of Society, and Registrar of Society is under the Home Ministry. So that means it's the ruling party. The Home Minister is members of parliament of the ruling parties, and they can be abuse of power to stop their rivalry from registering political parties. So we are seeing this now, with Muda having problems to register as a party. Previously, we have Party Socialist also having problems, and even Bersatu, yeah, before they became government. Made at that time was having problems to register Bersatu as a political parties. So our suggestion for this is the registration should be for administrative purpose only. That means you go and register as long as you fulfill, the basic requirements. There should be no reason for anyone to prohibit you from establishing a political party. Yeah. So it's just like freedom of assembly. Yeah. Previously, you need to get police permit, but now you just need to notify the police. Yeah. A few days before the public assembly. So, and we are suggesting also party registration instead of under ROS, which is under the executive. This should be because of the principle of separation of power. So we are suggesting that this should be administered by the Election Commission. Yeah, Election Commission as an independent body, and it is above the political party, whether you are ruling or opposition. And then denial of registration should be able to appeal, yeah, in court. But at the moment, the Home Ministers have the absolute power to deny, and you cannot challenge in court. So all these are the problems that we need to address. Now, the third issue is constituency delineation. Now, the constituency delineation, the boundaries, right? The drawing of the boundaries for parliament seats or the dune seats. There are two problems. One is malapportionment. So Malapportionment meaning that the numbers of voters from one constituency compared to other constituencies, there is a big gap. Okay, so for instance, the last general election, Bangi is the biggest parliament seats in the country with 178,000 voters. The smallest one is Igan, yeah, in Sarawak. It has only 19,592 voters. Yeah, so this is a big difference. Yeah, so it impact on the value of the votes. So when we talk about fair elections, every voter's votes should have similar value and similar weight. Okay, so one person, one vote. But when you have this malapportionment, so the value of the votes of the voters in Bangi is much less compared to those in Igan. Yeah, and the MP elected in Bangi will have to serve 178,000 voters compared to 19,000, yeah, in Igan. So this is a big gap, and this is unfair to the voters and also to the Wakil Rakyat. Yeah. The second issue is gerrymandering. So gerrymandering meaning the borders can be changed, yeah, to win elections. So let's say Party A, they lost in 2 seats nearby, yeah. These 2 seats are nearby. So in order to win, so they carve out some of their supporters from constituency A to bring it into constituency B to increase their winnability in constituency B. Yeah, so they crack constituency A, and then they pack their supporters in constituency B so that they can win in constituency B. So they'll lose one, but they'll win one instead of losing 2, right? So this has been the practice, used by the political parties, the ruling parties, to manipulate the electoral system. So to address this problem, we are suggesting that we should go back to 1957 when we have the federal constitution, where the differences of number of voters from one constituency to another should not be more or less than 15%. Okay, because currently now it doesn't specify a number. It just say that it should be approximately equal, but this is subject to interpretation, and interpretation can be very subjective. Yeah. So secondly, we are suggesting to establish a separate boundaries commission to conduct the constituency delineation. Yeah, this delineation exercise every 8 years. It is now conducted by election commission, but in the past experiences, we have experienced a lot of problems, and so we are suggesting to establish another independent boundaries commission to conduct this exercise. Yeah. Now, so you can see from this the problems of malapportionment. This is the example of Sarawak. So you can see that you can see BERSIH, yeah, is 31,000 compared to Igan is only 18,000. Tanjung Manis is only 19,000. Hulu Rajang is 24,000. So the rural areas constituency, they have bigger area and bigger number compared to some of the constituencies that is more semi-urban and urban areas. Yeah. So there is a big disparity. Now, the gerrymandering, so you can see this is one example of Sungai Buloh. Yeah. So in order to win, so they can crack the constituency and pack voters into so Sungai Buloh is a stronghold of DAP, so they pack all the supporters into this constituency so that the other constituencies the chances of winning might be bigger for the other parties, right? And the problems of this gerrymandering is also, you see, this is crossing several city council boundaries and municipal boundaries, right? So this becomes a problem because then it is very complicated to do coordination among the four municipalities and the city council and the district councils. So the MP will have to run, over four city council and municipal councils to do coordination in order to serve his constituency. Yeah. So this actually should not be allowed. Yeah. Now the fourth issue is electoral system. So the system that we are having now is first past the post system. So whoever gets the most votes, will be elected as a wakil rakyat. Whether doesn't matter that he didn't get majority. So let's say if 3 corner 5s, right? So you only get 40, the other 2 candidates get 30. So, but the 40% you get will let you to be the winning candidates. Yeah. So that's first past the post. So it translates into the earlier problems that I mentioned about the past general elections, where you get less popular votes, but when it translates into parliament seats, you actually get much more parliament seats because this is the first past the post system. Yeah. And so the ruling party may not get the majority votes, and then the legitimacy may be in questions. Yeah. And because you have a very slim majority or you are actually minority government, so you become vulnerable. Yeah, as we are seeing now for PH. Yeah, PH only about 51%, and then when several MPs jump, they become minority government and collapse. Yeah, so it becomes very vulnerable. So our proposal of reform is to actually introduce a new system, electoral system, mixed proportional representation. Yeah, to introduce this proportional representation. How this works is that let's say we have 200 parliament seats. So 100 parliament seats will continue to use the current system. So first past the post. Yeah. Another 100 seats will be based on how many votes received by the political party. So let's say party A, they get 40% of the popular votes. So out of the 100 seats for proportional representation, they should get 40 seats. Okay, so that's proportional representation. So this system will be more proportional represented. Yeah, the political parties will be more proportional represented. The outcome of the election result also will be more fair to reflect the strength of the different parties. Yeah. Number 5 is political financing. Currently, actually, we don't have political financing law, to control political parties when it comes to their finance. Yeah. So now there is no transparency in political parties financing. So we don't really know how much they receive, where they get their money, and we don't know how they spend their money. So that's why 1MDB, the scandal, a lot of money were used for election engineering, but actually this shouldn't be allowed. Right? Secondly, there is no transparency in election campaign financing as well. So although the Election Offences Act stipulated the ceiling of 200,000 for the parliament seats, and for Dun seats is 100,000. And then the candidates needs to report their election spending at the end after the election finished. But this report is not made public, and there is no auditing of the report. And normally the election commission also didn't really go and verify. Yeah, so there is no transparency, and there is also unequal playing field where which party can spend much more money. Yeah, like ruling parties. Yeah, they spend billboards, they spend advertising in radio, in internet, probably millions of ringgit being used, right? Instead of 200,000 only, right? Per constituency. Yeah. And lack of enforcement is another problem. Yeah. So the MACC, the Election Commission, most of the time, they don't really enforce this law. And also, the political parties, when they operate, they need money. And of course, we need political parties to operate. And because of this operation, they need money and they rely on private sector, yeah, to make donations. And this makes political parties vulnerable to those who donated, who can actually dominate their agenda, right, to decide the agenda of the political parties rather than serving the voters in their constituencies. And there might be other sources. So subject to, some maybe resort to corruption, and, if they are in government, abuse of state resources, for the party operation. So our proposal is the annual financial report of political parties should be submitted to Election Commission, and election spending account should be audited with supporting documents. And we are suggesting also the country should provide public funding for political parties instead of just allow them to rely only on private donations, right? So when you provide public funding based on the votes that they receive, like in Germany, in New Zealand, so then you can also ask for transparency in their financial management. And so this will also seal them from too much of influence from the private sector or some of the interested party, yeah, because after they come into government, they can make deals, yeah, which is may not be in the interest of the riot. Number 6 is women's political participation. So if you look at the women's population, we have 15 million out of 32 million. That's about 48% of the population. But we look at the MPs, 222 MPs, only 33 are women. So that is only 14%. Our ministers, 36, only 5 are women. That is even lower, 13.8% only. So the women are really underrepresented in our political system. So our proposal is to, as a short-term measure, we can introduce compulsory quota of 30% for women. And of course, this measure can be abolished once the quota is achieved. And if we are introducing, for instance, a proportional representation system, we can also introduce this criteria in candidates listing. So you list down the candidates for the proportional representation. So you can set criteria: 1 man, 1 woman, 1 man, 1 woman. Yeah. So that so when you go down the priority, so the women will be elected as MPs. Yeah. And of course, public funding as incentive for women's political participation, so that the political party can conduct more programs on women's political participation. Finally, this is the Election Commission. So all the problems that I mentioned above, right, the 6 main issues cannot be resolved if the Election Commission is not independent, yeah, and it's not functioning, yeah. So this is the mother of all problems. If the Election Commission does not want to initiate this reform, then we are stuck. So currently, the Election Commission, there is no clear criteria of selection of the election commissioners. There is no transparency. There is no checks and balances, and there is no institutional autonomy, yeah, for the Election Commission to function. And they also didn't have sufficient power, to enforce the law. So we are suggesting that in terms of appointment of the selection, yeah, of the commissioners for election commission, we are suggesting to establish a nomination committee, and this nomination committee will screen, will advertise the vacancy, they'll shortlist, they receive, anyone can apply, they'll screen and shortlist the candidates, and then the shortlisted candidates, they will submit to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister cannot select people outside of the list shortlisted by nomination committee, and so he has to select from this list and then submit the names to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong to appoint them as election commissioner. And of course, there can be also Parliament Select Committee to vet the nomination of the Prime Minister, yeah, to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. So the other is autonomy for the Election Commission, so that they can have their own budget. Currently, they have to get the budget. They are placed under the Prime Minister's office. So in a way, they are not really that independent. And also, they don't have the power to hire and fire their staff. So because their staff are public servants, so it is governed by the Public Service Commission. Yeah, so in that sense, they don't have the independence. Yeah, the third one is to so we are suggesting the Election Commission should be given power to enforce the law. So for minor election offences, they should be able to impose compound, yeah, on the offenders, just like the SOP on COVID-19. So then I think more people, more political parties, more candidates will listen to the Election Commission, and finally to be given the power to regulate political parties. That means the political parties will be put under Election Commission, and they will receive their annual reports, their financial accounts, and etc. Yeah, and also registration. Yeah. So I think those are the 7 key issues that I wish to highlight. Of course, this is not exhaustive. There are so many more, but in terms of the time, I cannot elaborate more. But you can see that these are the key issues for reform. If we are able to even address these 7 issues, our electoral process in Malaysia, which will be much more free and fair compared to the current situation. I think my time is up, so thank you for listening. And we have published a lot of reports on this, so you can actually go to our website to look at some of these proposals. Yeah. So that's the link, www.bersih.org. Yeah, you can go to the resource section, and then you can find all our research papers and reports on our website. Thank you, Florina.